Welcome to the Network of Biblical Storytellers Canada Festival 2025. We are very blessed indeed to be taught this week and next by Sandhya Ruban Hobday. She is a regular, yearly, in fact, I think, resource person to our NBSC festivals, sometimes as a keynote speaker, an animated teacher, and passionately faithful leader of the faith. With master's certification from the Academy for Biblical Storytelling under the NBS International, Sandhya is India's first certified biblical storyteller. She's gone on to found the Network of Biblical Storytellers India and the NBS Asia. Having completed 3 levels of Biblical Hebrew, she is now, in her free time, I think, pursuing her Doctor of Ministry degree in finding feminine narratives in the Bible. She didn't begin there, though. She began with a professional degree in dentistry. However, after her first child was born, she shifted her attention to a more flexible career in storytelling, and it took off. She received formal training for it, went on to perform both nationally and internationally, and then began training teachers and lecturers in colleges and schools in using storytelling as a tool to empower their teaching and in translating complex topics into audience-friendly stories. Among many accomplishments, she curated the Chennai Storytelling Festival 2013, coordinating international storytellers in performing at the festival, presenting a white paper on stories that speak aloud, and was keynote performer on opening night. It is her vocation to assist the people of her country to hear the stories of the God of mercy in the most heartfelt way through storytelling, biblical storytelling. And at the same time, she will press us who are already readers and sharers of Holy Word to never approach the Bible again with a pre-formed lens. And so now, my great pleasure is to welcome you, Sandhya, and hand all these people over to you and get us busy.
Thank you, Linnea, for that very long introduction. But I'm so glad that we can get together as believers in uh, in Christ and help one another further ourselves along in our spiritual journeys. Because after all, life is one big journey that we're making together as people from across the continents, trusting in the same everlasting arms that we sang about. And it's such a joy and privilege for me to be presenting to you all tonight. And well, we just have to get started someplace. So why don't we just start it off and ask the Lord to help us learn and unlearn and relearn some of the things together. I don't come to you from a place of higher knowledge. I don't come to you from a place of higher understanding, but I come to you as an equal, or I come to you as a co-learner this evening. And I just hope that what you came for, the Lord will meet those needs. Amen. So before we go ahead, why don't I ask all of you to share very briefly uh, your expectations from this workshop. I know it's a 201. So just let me know what your expectations are, and let us see if we are able to meet all of those over the next week, this week and next. Am I audible and am I legible? Great. All right.
I think I'd like to learn to be confident and just tell the story from heart rather than worrying that I got it wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
I'm just hoping that I can increase my skills. I have been in a new congregation for a little while, and they love the fact that I don't just read them scripture, and so I just want to keep getting better at it. Because they say they learn something new they didn't even know it was in the scripture when it's not read to them, but told to them. So
That's lovely to learn. All right.
Well, I love context. And I've always really enjoyed the historical and cultural context of the scriptures, and getting the fuller understanding of the background and the history. And John 4 has a lot of historical and cultural context.
All right, more context it is. All right. Go ahead, please.
Well, I've been with you before, and I know I'm just expecting wonderful things because God certainly works through you. And yeah, I too just would like to hone my skills, um, and it's just wonderful to be with others who love this discipline. And so I'm expecting good things, and I hope that I grow more in confidence. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Bev.
It's so great when you trust a leader, you just sign up and you just come. You say, just lay it on us. That's basically it.
No pressure.
Peggy, you were going to say something.
I was. I think what I'm looking for is, and the John 4 won't be this for me, but there may be other things that I'll pick up. Is how to hold on to the story better. So I find that the stories that I'm familiar with, I can hold on to really easily. We're working on Job for the epic telling, and oh my goodness, this particular passage of Job, I am having so much trouble hanging on to it. And so I'm kind of looking for how to get into a passage that's not familiar in the same ways that I can with one that is, if that makes sense.
It does.
Oh, have I gone frozen? I'm frozen.
You're not frozen to us. Go ahead, Gary.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty good at memorizing, and I've had probably too much theater in my background, so I wrestle with overtelling the story in some ways. But when it gets too dramatic, is it, when there's a feminine character, do I change my voice or do I just tell the story? And so what are the options, right? And how do you, even if maybe less sometimes is more, and maybe more sometimes is better. So.
I'm very new to this, and I'm enjoying hearing the stories told. And like other people, I have a lot of work to do on my own confidence. At one point I had a pretty good memory, but I've started to doubt it. So I could use some practice and some increasing confidence. But I really am enjoying hearing them read, and also, like people say, bringing all of the context and that somehow into the story, even though you're saying the same words.
Right. That's a lot of items on the list to process, but thank you for bringing it to the table. Yeah, those who haven't shared, you might go on.
My only comment is ditto. Peggy's comment was very similar to mine, as was Bev Brazier's. Wanting to get better and wanting to hold the story. But I appreciated Harry's comment too about, do I change my voice or do I just tell it, or like, how does that work? So.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just excited to hear whatever you have to offer us, Sandhya.
Thank you, Mike. So if I think a few others have to share, but if you're having trouble with your connections or you might not want to share so early, you're welcome to type it up in the chat box as well. So let's just dive right in. And let me present my screen. I wanted it to sound alliterative, which is why I put in the vowels there. So this is a pattern that we see in so many texts in the Bible, and this pattern has always fascinated me. Meeting a prospective partner at a site of community. And when we turn through the pages of the narrative, we know that there are many stories that just come right at us. And we're going to look at a few of those so we can form some basis and context before we go ahead and learn the story of John 4. So I I went on thinking as to, how wells really influence history and culture and practice of telling of stories. And then I could not help but put on there the Frog Prince, because some versions tell us that the golden ball was retrieved from a well by the frog, and the frog meets the prospective partner as the story goes. And I was very tickled that this folk tale or this fairy tale came to mind when I was talking to my children about it. Hey guys, do you know any story by the well? And immediately my little one bounces up and says, "Yes, mom, it's the Frog Prince." And we have a very popular folk tale in India. It's from the Punjab and it's called Bopaluchi. It's about clever Bopaluchi, brave Bopaluchi, Bopaluchi who did not make mistakes, and how Bopaluchi made a mistake in choosing her life partner at the well. But being clever and wise and bold, she undoes her mistake and goes on to find the right one. So maybe if we have time for that one, we'll get into a bit of that as well. Many cultures portray the well as the source of life, portray the well as a center of community, and portray the water well as probably sustenance for the entire community itself. So the importance of the well cannot be undermined in any which ways. And when we examine the theme of wells in the Bible, uh, it's betrothal at a well kind of a pattern that we see in the Old Testament. And we're going to just go ahead and look at pictures of some wells, which I think are wells in my context. I have never seen a Canadian well. I don't even know whether there are wells in Canada. I'm sure there are geysers and all of those. But then this one, I thought I should share with you. Well, this is a typical site in many Indian communities, especially in the rural areas. You can see that there are so many women waiting to get water from that very deep cistern that's right, you can't even see the level of the water there. What usually happens is a lot of gossip. So when they get together, they're talking and they're creating stories and they're reliving memories, and they want to know who's getting married and who's out far into into carrying the baby, and who's not seeing whom, and it's basically a buzz for the community, which I think as women we enjoy. This might even be a church. If I could just take the well and put a church there, well, that's what we do. We get together, we form a strong sense of bonding. uh, these are also different kinds of wells in my country. The one that you see there where the women are climbing different steps is actually called a step well, and it's found in many parts of Rajasthan, the desert areas. So the women not only walk miles on end to get to the step well, they also navigate all of these steps to get just that one pot of water up into their homes. And water management is essentially not a strong point of the Indian government now. So it's strange that we're talking about wells at this season. And this is also in many developing communities, we find the concept of the well that's coming through. So here I want to pause, and I had made a request for you to bring a picture of the place that you consider as the community hub. So could we have you share your pictures and tell us why it means so much to you? Okay, Melanie's going first. All right.
This is a picture of my friend Alan Tyzik, and oh, I'm trying to get it right. There we go. And he looks after, or we look after the homeless. And there's more and more homeless in Canada and all across the world. And when I sit in my own house and think of how warm I am near the fireplace, I think of the others in the storm that are homeless and want to provide for them. So I think the church is the community. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That thought itself is wonderful. But could we all share our pictures and tell us why that is so important to us? Creating a sense of community.
Lately, I don't know if you can see it. Lately, I've been involved with a program which is Dance for Health for Seniors in this community and our whole province of Nova Scotia. And it has become a gathering place for seniors who just want to get out and about, but also for people with dementia and Alzheimer's. So it has become a hub in several different communities, and one that I'm beginning to realize how important it is. So many people feel isolated, even still after years after COVID and that type of thing, that just bringing people together to move and enjoy music and time together has become quite important in my area.
I'm seeing a thread being formed here. And if you don't have the pictures, that's fine. But if you do, would you go ahead and share them?
Brought a picture of this is Kaylee, my niece, and she lived with me all the time she was growing up. And what she has done is become part of it's a stray cat rescue mission in downtown Saskatoon, and her sense of community as more than humans has always inspired me. And I don't have a picture of that particular place, but I brought that picture of her because she has a really finely honed sense of uh, community of all living things and taking care of the most vulnerable among us. Anyway.
Right. I'm picking up the keywords that I'm hearing from these conversations, which are very important to us, telling the story of John 4. Thank you for those pictures and the sharing that you're doing with us this evening. Yes, go ahead, Peggy.
There we go.
Could you-
I'm gonna share screen. Just give me a sec here. So this is the park around the corner from me. And this is kind of like the gathering place for our community. This is a summer picture, but in the winter, there's a little skating rink there. The kids go and skate. And you don't walk through the park that you don't see somebody with their dog, people visiting with each other, parents watching kids and chatting. So that's very much the community hub where I live.
Yes, please. Yes, Harry.
Yeah, I don't have a picture, but I don't think it's too hard to imagine. In the small community of Grand Bend in Ontario where I live, there's plans to build a community center, but until that happens, the hub tends to be the Legion, the Legion Hall, which has an upstairs hall, which is a little more formalized. Dinners are held there, wedding receptions are held there. A lot of community groups, the Provost clubs, the Rotary clubs, they meet there. Downstairs is more the Legion gathering. If you remember, you gather there, that's where the bigger bar is. There's a meat draw every Friday, and then they move into 4 hours of karaoke, and apparently they're the #1 karaoke go-to place in Ontario right now. So I have some fun there once in a while, but that's the gathering, one of the main gathering places. There are others in town, but I would say that one is where people go just to hang loose, meet friends. Oh, there's card playing. There's all kinds of stuff always going on. So
Sounds fun.
Okay, so Harry just gave me the greatest question, like what would biblical storytelling karaoke look like? What would that be? Okay, I want to just share my screen here. I asked David to forward over the photos that we just received today. So David's here beside me. You can't see him. So we're coming to you from North India, just so happens. And so this is what came to us today. This is our community hub, that is Summerland United Church, which is being torn down today. And so we've been in a long process of letting go of this physical space and moving in with the Anglicans in their beautiful heritage stone building. So it was quite still planning and knowing and imagining it and praying and talking with people about their memories and all of that still. The place that's been a hub for generations of families, it's hard to get your mind around that we're inside the sanctuary there in that top photo, looking out. So it's just hard to see a community hub be lost. And yet we know this process has actually made it absolutely clear that the community hub that we have had is God's people, and that it is us, it's the community. And the move has been one of the best things I've ever seen a church do in these circumstances. So there's our community hub.
So if you've shared, thank you for those pictures and memories. And I'm sure when you talk about it, it brings a lot of things into your mind. Um, you're not able to let go. Sometimes you're able to let go. But I kind of picked up a thread from Bev and from Beth and from Melanie that there was some degree of isolation in all of these cases mentioned, be it a stray cat rescue or or be it a hub for the seniors where they're letting go of their physical challenges and learning how to live together, because they also sometimes feel lonely and isolated. And likewise, Melanie, with the compassion for the homeless, well, that is one note that we find in John 4. The woman at the well was definitely facing one of those challenges. We don't know what it was. And so the picture was to help us build a personal connect with our community hub and see how we feel when we talk about these things. And there is a certain degree of poignancy that comes across when you do. There will be a lump in the throat somewhere down the story when we understand how this woman had her needs met by the Messiah. So thank you for that sharing. And we're going back to our pattern, the story of our pattern in the Bible. And I want to take you to, yeah, this particular well, which is, I heard, still in Israel. It's Beersheba, the 7 wells that we talk about in Abraham's story. And I was told that it's still a very popular tourist site, though I've never been there. This picture is from the internet. And this one I really liked because you cannot see water at all. All you can see is dry ground and steps to it. And hopefully there is somebody way down there, very microscopic, who's probably fetching a small bit of water and doing such a job of taking it up those stairs. All right. So in stories of the sacred faith like ours, wells probably were very important landscapes, and these were just not areas of irrigation or areas of sustenance. These were also places where community met and buzzed, like all of us. Every well had a memory, and we see so many different kinds of encounters: supernatural with man, clan with clan, and finally, man with woman. This is one kind of community that we are going to be seeing in these stories as we go on. So these are Robert Alter's type scenes. And he's done a lot of work in identifying these type scenes and helping us get across 7 steps that are needed to build a type scene. So that's probably what I'm going to be taking you through today. So these are some stories that come to mind where Isaac met Rebecca. Well, technically, Rebecca met Eliezer at the well, but then she goes on to meet Isaac. Jacob and Rachel, this is my all-time favorite love story. I just love this one. And Moses and Zipporah also, because damsel in distress, enter the hero, roll away the stone, do the water thing, feed the flock, feed everybody else, and then the damsel's happy, she goes home, and the rest is history. Well, in the case of Eliezer, though, it was not the typical damsel in distress scenario, but it kind of mirrors those emotions there. So when we look at 24, Genesis 24, when we look at Abraham, he wants a woman from his homeland. And it beats me why. When God took him out and said, go ahead and I'm going to make you like the stars of the sky and the sand and all of that. He still tells Eliezer, go back to my homeland and find me a wife, my son a wife. So he travels to the land of his relatives. Why do you think Abraham, insisted on this specific search? Can we have some thoughts? I probably think that he was totally frustrated with all the women that he had seen there. So he tells Eliezer, go back and get me some quote unquote women. So what did Sarah do that, that really upset him? Or what is the hidden narrative that we're dealing with there? Can you help me understand? Or what is your thoughts? No?
I think maybe he's reflecting back his own upbringing. That I think in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, it is better to look for a mate within not the exact kin group, but close to it. And perhaps he's just reflecting back on that. And I think perhaps he's finding himself very different from the people in the new country, that he's in. And that for his son, he really hopes that if he's going to preserve what he brought from the old country, it would be helped by having him meet or partner with somebody else from that group. It's a very similar thing happened to somebody I know here in our area. They came from, I think, Kosovo, and I think she had a son and 2 daughters, but when the son was looking for a wife, he went back home because they were not sure how to marry their customs with our customs. So they thought the best thing for him to do would be to go back home.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Kathy. Chris, you raised your hand.
Yes, it's a place that God had called him to. And God instructed him to leave and to go to the promised land, and just to, like she was saying, to find someone that is more familiar with his grouping of people to expand and grow, because Abraham was looking for the city of God, and so he's going to bring some more of his people with him.
Right. That there is a very interesting question for all of us to think about. I probably would say, well, they don't raise girls the way that we do in here, so let's just go back there and get ourselves a good one from my country. I probably would like to look at that with a little bit of humor and sarcasm, because I don't want to say the rest. I married out of context, and I kind of know how that works. So, that was something to think about, wasn't it, when we understand these narratives? So he goes on and he finds a person there. He finds Rebecca, lo and behold, and you know the story. He prays for a woman, who will offer water to him and to his camels. So when we understand this, we understand a step well. Rebecca had to climb down multiple steps, hoist a whole pitcher of water on her shoulders. And I don't know of any woman who would do this feat but for supernatural strength from God himself. We know how many gallons of water a camel will drink. But then when we tell the story of Rebecca offering Eliezer's camels water, I've never seen a teller gasp for breath. Because it's not going to be one fluid action of watering the camels. So when we, as a storyteller, when we want to embody that particular action, we would say, and Rebecca offered water to all of Eliezer's camels. I would be out of breath if I had to do that 10 times over. So when we feel the angst of Rebecca, I know she was a willing party to this adventure, but I'm sure she had physical limitations as well. So embodying that pain in the story wouldn't really hurt. And I think this tells us a lot about Rebecca's character. People are going to extol her virtues and say a lot of things, but I also think she was looking for the right catch. So when it came her way, she just went and did everything that she had to make sure that, she nails the right person. So that is also another way of looking at it. And Rebecca's offer, well, you all know that, and it says selflessness and willingness. We always want to portray Rebecca as a very virtuous woman. But I think there's some kind of spunk that's associated with her character. Imagine talking to a strange man. Imagine walking down those steps and bringing up pitchers of water and saying, hey, do you want someone to drink? Hold on, I've got some more coming up for you. So it was a long, long, period of time that Rebecca spent at that well. And how did it not arouse suspicion in the household? She was gone long. Was nobody looking for her? Did nobody come and question her actions? Well, these are areas of the text that I would really love to focus on and, read between the lines and between the text to come up and portray this when we tell it. And afterwards, we all know what happens. She goes home and she runs and she shares the news of meeting the kinsman. And the servant says, take me to your family. And then, of course, when there is family, there is hospitality in the Bible. And of course, he unites, there's food, there's shared there, there's so many symbols of community that's created there. And at this point, I want us to reflect on another question, because even in John 4, food is a big deal. The disciples have gone away to fetch food. And when they come back, they look at Jesus and they're wondering, what is this woman doing with him? Probably did she give him something to eat? Why is he sending us away to the far country to get him food? And then Jesus said, I have food that you guys don't know about. I'm doing my Father's work. So how does food play a role in building connections in your own life? For us, it's our Sunday meal together with the family. That is our sense of bonding. That is our time of camaraderie and fun and discussing about what went wrong in church, what went right at church. That's probably our debrief session as well. So food for me is equal to Sunday meals. And when I think of Sunday, I cannot help but reflect on the goodness of God and how he brought us all together as a family. So how does food play a role in your life when it comes to you creating community? Let's take a minute to answer that, shall we? And if you're resonating with what I said about Rebecca, give me a thumbs up or let me know that I'm thinking about it. I want to do it this way when I tell it the next time. Just go ahead and talk to me. Go ahead, Chris. I think
The parallel of the table to the well. A place to meet and a place to share food. And just as the women met at a well, sharing food at a table is the way that women come together and talk about their lives and their families.
That is so true. Yes, it is a strong parallel. Yes. how does food resonate with you when it comes to building a sense of community? No one likes to eat alone. Yes, Kathy.
Well, if you feed them, they will come. It's a wonderful gift to give to people, to invite them for meals, or to always have hospitality, before you say have meetings and things like that. So we're finding, especially after COVID, where we were very isolated for a long time, it is it's looked upon as a real gift. And it's not easy. It's not quite as hard as walking up 10 steps of flights of stairs with carrying water, but still, it requires work and thought, and it's appreciated. I think about the hospitality, that I think that was something that I noted about Abraham's family.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help thinking maybe one of the things that was in the back of his mind was, for Isaac also, and his children to receive the gift of hospitality, all from himself and Sarah, and also from whoever Isaac would marry.
Right. That's true. There's so many stories that the Midrash tells us about Sarah's hospitality and her tent in particular, and that is worth considering because he probably felt that Rebecca would embody that hospitality further on. That's true, and we all have memories of food being shared and community being created, and basically a sense of togetherness that is established at every meal, like whether it's your Canadian Thanksgiving or Christmas or what have you. So the pattern is interesting, isn't it? Then when they go back home, there's hospitality. There's a lot of food, and nobody's even asking, "Hey, what brings you here?" So they're probably like, "Eat up, just have your fill. Your camels have eaten, now you eat, and let's just have a good time, and then we'll get down to business." We find that happening even in the Jacob story. And whenever I do the story of Jacob, I deeply respect and admire Dean Tracy Radosovic for her pizzazz. That's the word I would use. She's such a bold and spunky storyteller, and she inspires me to no end. So we were doing this at the academy, and she said, "It just didn't fly, Sandhya. Jacob, it's just not working. Where is the naughtiness in your telling?" And that made me step back and say, okay, this is an adult theme. We cannot bring it down because Jacob is entering many women here, and the women are at war with one another as to whose womb will produce more. So she said, where's the naughtiness? And then I kind of felt that we don't bring subtle sense of humor and sarcasm and naughtiness, quote unquote, into our stories when we tell, which is why the text remains insipid at times. I'm not saying spice it up, but I'm saying embody it the way the original people felt in the story. So when I do Laban and Jacob, I just love that story. I'll just do a small portion of it for you. And Jacob went to Laban and said to him, "Your daughter, Rachel, oh, I love her." And so Laban said, "Ah, you love my daughter? Very good, very good. I am going to give her in marriage to you, but you have to work for me for 7 years, huh? 7 years? Yes, 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 yes. You have to fulfill her week. Now go, 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 go. Go and do your work. But before you go, you must name your wage, huh? Name your wage. I don't want you to work for me for free. And so Jacob went and fulfilled the week of Rachel, and it was time for the marriage. And Laban invited everyone in the community and set up a huge feast. Jacob, my friend, come, come, come. It is time for you to meet your wife. So he sent Jacob into the tent, and at night, Leah entered the tent. And after spending the night with Leah, Jacob realizes that it was not Leah, and he quickly goes to Laban and says, "What did you do? You gave me Leah instead of Rachel." And Laban says, friend, in my country, it is not good for me to give the younger before the older. Huh? Now you go. You go and work for Rachel, fulfill her week. Now go on, go on. So I like to portray it with a little bit of an Eastern accent, and I like to portray it with the body language that Laban has, because there's a big thing with spitting in the East. It's not so much a very polite thing in the West. I know that. Linnea, you've been to India multiple times for you to know that it is acceptable behavior. So I imagine Laban sitting at this big, big feast, and he's lying low on a couch and he's being very saucy, but he says, go on, fulfill the week of my younger one, Rachel, and go work for 7. I think he's enjoying giving Jacob the trouble. So accents, body language that embodies the character from the Eastern perspective. Sometimes we just have to let go of our, how do I phrase this? I'm wondering. We have to have the chutzpah to portray this. So when you do that, the story comes along beautifully. And Leah said to her maid, go. And Jacob went in and lay with the maid, and she bore a son, and she called him, and then he went into her, and she bore a son, and she called him. And then he went into her, and she bore a son, and she called him. And finally, she said, the Lord has heard my prayers. Can you imagine the work that Jacob is doing in that narrative? I cannot for the life of me understand how that just happens in one whole chapter. And then there's the mandrake incident. Come sleep with me and I'll give you the mandrakes. So these are the kind of narratives that really touch our souls. And every time I tell the story of Jacob and Rachel, I feel the love between them, and I feel the toil between them, and I also feel Laban's interference. So that being said, let's just go right on. And the union of Rebekah and Isaac probably represents God's providence and fulfillment of Abraham's wishes. And it is all a happy ending. We know how that works. And now we get to our narrative, Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman. And do we see a pattern here? That's my question. Is there a traditional pattern that we observe in this story? I think we do. There is a community. There is a place that the woman goes to. And whom does she see there? The knight in shining armor. He's tired. So at this point, I want to challenge you to grab your cup of water. I know you have not had a sip from the time that we've gone on. So if you have your cup of water, why don't you just grab it? Yes. Have it with you at hand. Yeah. Don't drink it just yet. Don't drink it just yet. So the story goes, and Jesus went to Samaria. And there was a piece of land that Jacob had given his son Joseph, and the well was there on that property. And being the afternoon, Jesus was tired from his journey, and he sat down at the well. And there came a Samaritan woman. And Jesus said to her, woman, give me some water. I'm going to leave the story there, and I'm going to let you feel thirsty. Thirsty enough for you to reach out and grab a small sip of water from your cups and try that line. Can you give me water to drink? Now you become Jesus, and let me see how that emotion comes across after you've had that beautiful sip of water. I'm going to go ahead and do the same too. I invite each of you to try that line. I'm sure there's a script that's been mailed out to you by Linnea. You don't have to memorize it at this point in time. Feel free to go ahead and look into the text as well. Yeah, there is a file that is in your chat boxes. And just look at that line where Jesus asks the woman for water. And how would you embody that if you were the thirsty Jesus? I invite you all to share your points of view and your embodying of that line.
I think I'd have a little bit of a catch, a heavy duty swallow before I asked, because when I'm dry, I have to do whatever I can to get it to be able to speak again.
So
So
how would you say that?
before Jesus could talk it, give me a drink kind of idea.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
there'd be that physical
Mm.
obviousness, I guess. That would be me.
Yeah. That's great. A catch in the throat. Yes, yes. Go ahead. Yes.
I think there'd be a little hesitation
Mm-hmm.
in the line. It would be like, can you give me a drink?
Yeah. Give me a drink. Yes. You have to do this for yourselves, because unless you do it, you're not going to get out of that comfort zone. No one's judging. Go ahead.
Give me a drink.
Give me a drink. Okay. That's nice. Linnea, you want to try it?
It's interesting that she came at noon,
Yeah.
because the other women, it was too hot. What they did was in the morning or in the evening to come to the well, and she would have been alone, not with the other women.
That's true. Yeah. Linnea was about to try that. Yeah.
Give me a drink.
Give me a drink. Yes.
I might rub my throat some. And give me a drink.
Yeah. It's got the swallow, and it's got the parched sense of that's in your throat when you're thirsty. All right. Woman.
That dryness in your tongue, like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. I would want to give me a drink.
Give me a drink. Yes.
I hope he said please, but you know.
I hope so too. Yes. Yes, Heather.
And I would add, Bev, I think the same thing. And I'm imagining him the way panhandlers are. Give me a drink.
Interesting. Okay.
Because maybe what he's inviting her into is the hospitality. I don't know.
There
I
is
saw
also, yeah, go ahead, Kathy. Go ahead.
I saw just something on Facebook this week, and it gave a picture of the woman at the well, and it said, "He didn't come for water; he came for me."
Mm.
Something like that. So because this is John's gospel, I don't think Jesus said please. I think he just spoke his, give me a drink, because she was taken aback, you know.
Right. Yeah. There's,
Doesn't it look like he wanted a conversation?
Mhm. He did want a conversation. Yes, that's right. So I would probably picture Jesus sitting there by the side of the well, in his traditional attire. And when he sees the woman up close, I would imagine a few pearls of perspiration on his forehead, because it was a hot afternoon. Um, so I would definitely imagine some kind of perspiration there, and I would probably say, "Woman, give me a drink." Because it's very natural for us to wipe away sweat with your hand when you're feeling really hot and bothered. So he would have just probably done that, and, give me a drink. And I also think here he's showing the woman where she belongs. Your job is to get me the water. So though he's very gentlemanly and all that, some kind of stereotype is being enforced in that paragraph. And I like it when she says, "You have no bucket, sir, and the well is deep. Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well, and all of his flocks and his sons, they drank from this well?" Huh? I would probably ask Jesus, with a lot of questioning. The well is deep, and you don't have anything with you to even get the water out. What are the claims that you're making here? So as we go down that story, we probably will explore a little more. Sorry, I'm just going to take a quick second to plug in my power source. Give me a minute.
Yep. I was about to say that I have seen this conversation portrayed as over a piano in a piano bar. It was in church, it was in worship, but Jesus is sitting at the piano, and no, or the woman is leaning on the piano. Anyway, the conversation is all not, everything that's said isn't what is meant. Give me water. It's not really water I want. The kind of water. And
There's risk for both of them because this is dangerous territory for both of them. He's in foreign territory, having conversation in public with a Gentile woman. And she's all alone, isolated from her own culture, with a man in public at noon, all alone, vulnerable. So it's it's like a cat and mouse game in some ways.
Is
Leading questions, baiting the hook back and forth.
Sandhya, we just lost Sandhya, but I know she's coming back once she's got her power back. I'll observe. I think that the word "please" is a Western concept. I don't think it's mostly said. There may be a way of using other words or the tone, but I don't think the word "please" really factors in. And it's, we're here at a school in North India, and I think we're the only ones who say "please." There's lots of thank yous, but we go around like North America and say, "Oh, would you please, little children, will you please do this?" And that's not the way people speak to one another. So it's not,
That's really helpful. Thank you.
pushy. Yeah, it's not rude or pushy. It's just the way people speak to one another. And Sandhya just sent me a little message saying I'm just switching to something Gen set or something. So Gen set. Yeah, don't know. She just wasn't plugged in. Heard. So here we are at the well in the middle of the day, having this conversation about water, and we're looking at what he asks of her and how he asks it and how she answers. Heather.
So I happened to be watching again a presentation by John Bell, and his comment from Iona community, and his comment was, we always think of her as she's shunned, right? That's why she's coming out at the well. He said, but what if she's curious? What's this guy doing? Like, is she curious? And so she goes out to, I wonder who he is. And he makes it a little raunchier than that, but it got me thinking, like, maybe that's what makes her worthy of an entire chapter, is the fact that she's curious about him. She's going to him rather than him asking her.
And you could just imply that in how you say that. So, and then a Samaritan woman came to draw water, or how would you say to draw water? Just the way you say that can raise the question, and that's all you have to do, right? Ha, to draw water. I don't know.
Sorry about that. I had a outage and I have to switch to the alternate power source. All
You
right.
were
So I
right.
guess there has been some conversation going on about
Oh,
the
we
woman.
wrapped up, Sandhya. Yeah, no, we have all the answers. Yeah.
That's quick. All right.
Welcome back.
So I want us to think about embodying the perspiration and asking her for the drink of water, knowing that she's a woman and he's a man. We see the same kind of motive that we saw in the Old Testament stories about a prospective meeting. And this meeting goes on and develops into a potential loaded conversation. And I like the fact that they're talking about life-giving water and, water gushing out into eternal life and all of that. And suddenly he takes a turn and he says, go bring me your husband. So it's just out of the blue. So I was at this NBS festival a few years back, and it was looking at the Bible through Middle Eastern eyes. And that's when I was told that Jesus was not referring to the husband per se, but he was referring to the idolatrous community that Samaritans were. And probably these husbands were pointing at the different kinds of gods that they worshipped, which is why the conversation segues into my folks worship on this mountain and yours worship at Jerusalem. Now tell me, she's posing an open-ended question, what is right? So I've always wondered how the conversation can segue from husband to worship. And when I understood that it was looking at it through a Middle Eastern context, like how Jesus would have looked, he says, the one you're living with right now is not your husband. And then she challenges him and says, isn't there a Messiah that's coming who knows everything? And he goes on to say, yes, that's me. And then he says, those that must worship me in the spirit and the truth, for God is a spirit. He's categorically denying that there are any images or forms to God. And he says, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him with spirit and with truth. And it's interesting that this woman who came to the well in secret by the noontime, as we always have been told, when she didn't want to make friends or, chit chat with people and gossip with the others because she didn't have a good life. It's interesting that she goes back and she says, come and see. I met a man who has told me everything that I've done. What could those everything that I've done be? And how is she so joyful when somebody uncovers her past? What is making that twist in her tale, as we'd like to refer to it? If you can think about those questions for a while. And then the disciples, of course, when they come back, they see him talking to this Samaritan woman, and their ears go up when things are happening. And then Jesus further goes on to confuse them and say, I have meat that you don't know of. And they are thinking, what? We just brought everything that we had with us. What is this that we don't know of? And here they come across as the simpleton disciples that we see in the text very often. And then he goes on, and the story ends there. I'd like to play a video at this point, and I want to ask Isaac to play it for us. But Jesus needed to go through Samaria. And so he went to the Samaritan town called Sychar, and he sat down by a piece of land that Jacob had given his son Joseph, and he sat down by a well.
And there came a woman to draw water from the well. Jesus looked at her and said, "Woman, can you give me some water to drink?" And she said, "Sir, you're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan. How is it that you asked me for water?" This she said because the Jews and the Samaritans, they didn't quite share their things, and the disciples had gone out to buy food. So Jesus looked at her and said, "If you knew who it was that was talking to you, you would ask him for the living water." And the woman said, "Sir, the well is deep and you have no bucket. How are you even going to give me this living water? Are you greater than our forefather Jacob?" To which Jesus replied, "Anyone who drinks of this water is going to thirst again. But anyone that drinks of the water that I am going to give will never thirst again. For out of his stomach shall come forth living water, gushing up towards eternity." The woman said to Jesus, "Sir, give me this water so I can drink of it and never thirst again." Jesus said to her, "Woman, go and bring me your husband." To which the woman said, "Sir, I have no husbands." Jesus said, "That is correct. You have had 5 husbands, but the one that is with you right now is not your husband." To which the woman said, "Your ancestors tell us to worship on Mount Jerusalem. My ancestors tell me to worship on this mountain. What is it that one must do?" Jesus said to her, Woman, the hour is coming where we will neither worship on this mountain nor shall we worship on that mountain. The Father seeketh such that worship him in spirit and in truth. For God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And the woman said to him, "I know that there is a Messiah called the Christ who is coming, and he will proclaim all things to you." And he said, "I am he that you are speaking to." By then, the disciples came back and they were urging him to eat his food, and they saw him with the woman at the well, but they didn't ask him who it was or what she wanted. They kept urging him to eat his food. And Jesus turned and said to them, "I have food that you do not know of." And the disciples said to one another, "Is it probably because someone else brought him the food?" And Jesus said, "My food is to do the will of him that sent me and to complete his work. You say there are 4 months to the harvest, but look around you, lift up your eyes. The fields are full of the harvest. And the time is coming where the reaper is reaping the fruit into his basket and reaping eternal wages, so that the story might come true, that one sows and another reaps, but you are reaping that which you have not labored for. Someone has labored, and you have entered into that labor." When the woman went back to her town, many of the Samaritans heard her testimony. Her testimony, which said, "Come and see, there is a man that has told me everything that I have done." When the Samaritans came to Jesus, they begged him to stay with them for a few days. And Jesus abided with the Samaritans for 2 whole days.
Thank you, Isaac. I deliberately chose a swimming pool for that story because I wanted to feel the water when I was telling it. I wanted to feel the living water because it was told on a very hot summer afternoon. And it took me all my resistance and willpower to not jump into that pool. So that's the reason why I chose that location, and I felt that the crows added to their to the authenticity of the story, because I'm sure it would have not been a very quiet well. There would have been an ecosystem around the well. So the more of the surround sound, the better the story is told. I would now ask for feedback about the story. What do you think could have been done better in case you saw it and heard it without it being buffered? I'm not sure because it was super buffered for me. Maybe my internet is not stable.
No, I think it was for everybody, was it not? Quite glitchy.
Yeah, it was glitchy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the parts that you got, where do you think that you resonated with that story, and how can we work on this to get it to the next level?
I thought it was fantastic. I loved your eye expressions, and you were able to elicit from your face and your expressions what part of the story you were at. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie.
I think that Jesus accepts us. He accepted her. She was a Samaritan. He had to go that way to bring her into his family. And Jesus is accepting of all people.
Right. Okay. Any part of the story that resonated with you? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Well, you could have wiped your brow because you thought about that after, right?
Yeah, I could
And
have.
that was just a
Yes.
little thing, but I don't know if this woman is here. I think she might also could be flirtatious,
Mm-hmm.
not just intellectually. I want to see her heart fluttering while she's talking to him, and I'm not sure I caught that. It was more of a, oh yeah, you do this, and I mean, it was back and forth. It was good. It was different facial change, and we know there was different characters. Just wonder what would happen if she was a little flirtatious.
You have food that I do not know of. I think we should explore that that tone when we say things to him. I probably say, "Sir, you have no bucket. How are you going to draw that water?" Maybe, I don't know. I'm just toying with what you suggested. Yeah.
It's an option. It's an option.
Yeah, it is an option. It's definitely a great option. So, how else would you have seen that story, and what did stand out to you? Because I don't know how long we have. Linnea, how long do we have?
We have till the the quarter past here, Sandhya.
Okay. So, once we share about this, we'll get into a breakout, and we'll start exploring the story together with a partner. So I don't know how the breakout is to be done because the numbers are maybe 2 per breakout or 3, would you?
Sure. I just want to throw in though that women are so often portrayed in a sexualized manner that I wouldn't go there myself. And so, but I'm just so taken with the fact that she's the first one who really has a theological conversation with Jesus, isn't she? She really takes him to task. She's a rabbi. She's a rabbi at the well. And so I like to think about what did it look like when the rabbis were together, when the men got to get together and to debate the law for the sheer joy of doing that. And wouldn't there been this kind of intensity? Yes, but what about this? So I'd be more inclined to tell it in that kind of a way. Sure, but you have no bucket. You know, do it. Be the rabbi that she's not allowed to be.
I'd like when he addresses her as woman, he does that to his mom and as well. And I've always, how do you say that? Now the commentaries will say that's a term of respect, like ma'am, that it's not how we hear it. But how do you think about calling her woman? What tone does he use when he says that?
Are you asking me, or is it like a
Well,
general?
yes, I guess I am, or generally, but yes, I'd like to hear your take on that.
I would probably think he used the tone of voice when he spoke to the woman with the issue of blood. You know, when he just bends down and picks her up and says, daughter. He calls her very endearingly. I probably would think that Jesus used that tone, a mix of respect and endearment, and also pity that she's at that particular position. And he was on a mission, you know, he was on a mission to go through Samaria, probably the first one that passed through that territory in a long, long time. So I would probably say, woman, you know, maybe with a smile, or maybe with with if I would probably even say that if you know who it is that you were talking to, and if you know what I could give you, you would have known, and I would have given you living water. And then she would have said, what is this water? Give me that living water so that I don't have to thirst again and I don't have to come here to draw again. She would have made a specific mention of the well, and then he would have said, woman, go and bring me your husbands. So every time he repeated that phrase, it would be with a different intensity. But I'm looking at it more in terms of endearment.
Thank you. I liked when he said, "Go and bring me your husband," and you lowered
Yeah.
you lowered your instead of her being defiant. You know,
Yes.
I have no husband. It was anyway. I
It's
like
like
that.
your whole you know, your life history is being uncovered in just one word, and you feel an intense sense of shame. In shame honor cultures, that's what you do when somebody uncovers your shame. You just lower your head. You accept that.
Sort of time of silence before some of these big changes in the conversation. That one in particular, when 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 she says, "Give me this living water," and then he turns everything around and says, "Bring me your husbands." You know, that just a little bit of a quiet time there. We probably didn't get it because our reception was kind of broken up. But you know what really caught me that I hadn't really noticed before was the "come and see" that she said to the people of Samaria. The same words that in John's gospel Jesus uses when he
Yeah.
speaks to Andrew and Philip. Same words that Philip uses when he speaks to Nathaniel. You know,
Yes. Yes. That's a wonderful thread right there. You know, come and see this man. He told me everything that I've done. You know, and again, the motive of hospitality. She wants him to stay back, and they want to offer him a meal. And spiritually, if you look at him as the bridegroom that he is portrayed as, then this is the perfect representation of worship at the well. You know, meeting the prospective life giver at the well, because in Eastern cultures, the husband is the one who provides the wife with all sustenance. It's taken for granted that he assumes the role of protector. So we could also look at it in that connotation. And I think it's time for us to get into our breakouts and try to probably focus on the first part of the story. If we can learn that, I don't know how much time we can allocate to the learning, but let's say about 5 minutes. 5 minutes for us to just pick up the first few lines and present it together. So I think let's break out. We're 12 of us. So Isaac, could you just put us into 3 breakouts?